Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blue Knight 7 with episode 34 of the Blue Knight Cast. And there's two things I felt the need to talk about today. One not so much, but one more so. But I wanted to hit them both. Just go ahead and hit them both this Friday, February the 20th. And the first is an announcement that came out early this morning. There is ports of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green coming to Nintendo Switch, as in the first Switch, eshop. The Game Boy Advance games that were basically remakes of the original Pokemon games that started all on Game Boy. And they are coming out on February 27th, which happens to be Pokemon Day this year. So before Pokemon Day even happens and the announcements occur, we're already getting, we know we're getting two games that have been requested by Pokemon fans. I don't care to say, I never really was a Pokemon gamer. I never could get into them. I guess because I got started on JRPGs before them, I don't know, they just don't hold my attention. And I know that sounds like the opposite of what most people expect from Pokemon. You know, they kind of have a reputation for being a little addictive. Gotta catch them all, right? But I just never really could get into it. I know when Sword and Shield come out, I bought Shield just to see what I thought of it, see if I can get interested in it. Now that there's actually coming from the mainline console for the Switch. And I'll be honest, I was trying to stay awake while I was playing it. Maybe it was stuff I was going through at the time, but it just didn't hold me. And I just felt like I kept wanting to go into this grind loop where I try to catch Pokemon in the wild area once you first get there, and I never could get myself interested in advancing the story beyond that, so I kind of went to other games. But that's me. And, I'm looking at this like maybe it would be worth getting one or the other as sort of an enhanced version of the originals, just to at least play the classic games, if that makes sense. See if I can catch Mewtwo for the first time, that kind of thing. So I'll keep you all posted if I get into that. But I'm probably not doing it immediately, and it's not a high priority on my list. Yeah. But good to know, and this you kind of wonder why there might not have been like at least a direct mini or something this week where they announced Xenoblade X Definitive Edition and this and then all the other little random things. But I think the real background narrative here is Nintendo had some small things to announce. And to me, this one, if you had it in a General Direct, some might consider it a very big thing, but it's also more of a Pokemon announcement, which they're going to make some Pokemon announcements next week for sure. This could be a way of just clearing things out for what they considered their next big event, which was the Pokemon Presents, even if that's not directly under Nintendo. But I feel like they cleared some first parties out, just random trailer drops. Let the partner direct go. Bigger direct down the line. I still think it's April. It could be March. It could be end of March. Who knows? But I'm just sort of holding on to the hope that that's what we have lined up here. And that's kind of how I see it at this point. But the main topic I really wanted to talk about today, and I'll say this is another one that I don't have a strong personal attachment to as far as myself as a gamer, just to be clear. But I do want to speak about it, if only for the people that it does. I know One frequent commenter that's appreciated, I believe his name's Cole Ike, shout out to you, who told me he was a PS5 gamer and a PC gamer. I saw the news that Bluepoint Games has been announced to be closed by Herman Holst from Sony Interactive. And I read his statement. I'll try to include a link to Video Games Chronicle, these two news stories in the description in case you just want to read it. But basically, don't quote me, I'm not quoting, but to paraphrase, he was just saying after a business review, they decided to close Bluepoint Games. It has become ever more difficult to sustainably develop games. And they do believe they're confident that they're making the right decisions going forward, and basically I hope everybody's still enjoying their PS5. So I dropped my jaw at this one. I'm not even a PlayStation owner, but I dropped my jaw at this one. That was my reaction. Like, what? Bluepoint? Are you sure? For those who don't know, Bluepoint Games is a studio in Austin, Texas. A lot of their talent is ex-Retro Studios, as in people who worked on Metroid Prime, let's say. And they have a good standing reputation of their own now for making high quality remakes of classic games. Games like Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, Gravity Rush, Demon Souls, which PS5 launched with and was considered a very high quality remake. That's their bag. They make good remakes of good games. We have not seen the product from them since 2020, 6 years ago almost, when the PS5 launched. It does not seem like it should be 6 years ago, but yes, it is. And there was a lot of speculation as to what they were working on. There were some rumblings early on that they might be remaking Metal Gear for Konami to go to PlayStation 5. But then more recent rumors shifted towards a live service game based on God of War. I'm not kidding. And now we're just closures being announced without any confirmation, I don't think, of exactly what they were working on. No, I'm sure that will come out of the woodwork sooner rather than later. And like I say, I don't really have a big personal connection to this studio, other than, of course, a lot of them worked on Metroid Prime, which one of my favorite games of all time. And I think they also were responsible for working on the Metal Gear Solid HD collection that PlayStation 4 benefited from, I believe, and now it's gone to other consoles, and obviously I have the collection on Switch. So there's that. Would have liked to see what they did with the original Metal Gear, personally, if they were going to do it. But, I mean, my honest response is, what the hell were they thinking? Sony has had this thing, and I actually consider doing a topic in the future about the state of the console wars, or even though nobody calls them that anymore. And I was going to basically praise and criticize what these different studios have done. I don't have much praise for Xbox, but with Sony, it's like you can't say they've done everything flawless. They may have been out on top in recent years for different reasons, but you can't say they've been flawless. No more than the other Nintendo or Microsoft has. Microsoft just trips on its own feet. But with Sony, they have this obsession in recent years with trying to make the next big live service game. That's what they really want. It's clear in their development philosophy. All the lion's share of their resources has went into getting a live service game off the ground that people will just jump up and down and get hooked on, and basically be the next Fortnite or the next Overwatch, let's say. But they seem blind to the fact that those things are probably the hardest thing to sell in 2026. Overwatch kind of resurging in the last couple of weeks has been kind of a miracle in itself. And they were long established and kind of set foot on the ground in the early days. I want to say they predate Fortnite. So, I don't know what to tell these people. I think that the biggest mistake they're making is they think they have to have the next Fortnite or Minecraft or Overwatch or whichever you prefer. They think they have to have that. When what they really need to do is figure out how to get these quality single-player experiences out more efficiently. Now, I know the common Sony games criticism, like it's just another over-the-shoulder third-person action game with heavy cinematics. I'm not saying that's wrong, but that was still better than what they're trying to do with stuff like, honestly, everything they've done has been an attempt to make a live service game succeed. Look at Concord. That was supposed to be an Overwatch killer. They were wanting that to be a huge thing that got off the ground, and we can talk about all the things wrong with it, the culture of toxic positivity that probably made sure it'd be a train wreck, how unoriginal it was in many ways. But the point is, they keep wanting one of those to work when they're investing massive amounts of resources into those games to get them off the ground, when there's, more often than not, they just fail. Marathon, to me, is probably the one shot they still have going in that direction. It may turn out a little better because Bungie has tried to say, okay, we listened to you all, we tried to fix some things. It may actually do better. Helldivers 2 is probably the most successful game of that type this generation, let's say. But Sony doesn't even own that game outright. They've just worked close with that developer, and then the developer was going to other platforms with it. So Helldivers 2, that's probably, and Sony probably wished they had just bought that one hook, line, and sinker. But that's what's going on here. I mean, that's the problem. And in the case of Bluepoint, which, by the way, is the fourth studio they've closed in recent years. The other three I don't think were near as big, but this is a bigger one. But it's the fourth studio they've closed in recent years. Not to mention Japan studios. And the overriding theme here is they're clearly focused less on single player. They want someone that can put out a live service game that'll make money. And I guess Bluepoint worked on this game. It wasn't working out. They canceled the project, and they canceled them along with it. That seems to be what happened. We'll know more in time, but I guess that's what really happened. So the lessons being taught right now, if you're a game developer working for Sony, is one, you better get a good live service game if you want to make it, and two, if you make a mistake, you're gone. That's pretty much it, because clearly they thought it was not worth the money to put them on another remake right away. They thought it was worth the money to just shut them down and say, we hate it, for those employees. Is that why people hate corporations? Yes, that thinking is a big part of it. It's their stinking thinking. It really is. But what I wonder, because it just seems to keep happening, Microsoft, they've had their share of these layoffs and things like that too. They have gutted their studios. There is a major problem with higher corporate management in these big game publishers, especially in the West. And I would argue corporate America in general. This goes beyond the game industry. But there's a major problem where the high management seems to have no sense of the value of the workers below them. They would rather fire, lay off, hire new people, pay them less, do whatever they can to reduce their payroll. Why do you think we're talking about AI so much? Why do you think AI is being heralded as this great revolution? The revolution to them is they can hire less people. That's what it is. Less payroll, more profit. That's really what they're trying to do. But there's a point at which they're going to have to hit a wall and realize they have lost the talented people that they had. Where is Sony going to go if they need to remake a game? Because their studios are having a hard time getting original games out timely. Where are they going to go? They had Bluepoint. Metal Gear, Konami want to do a Metal Gear Solid remake. Maybe they do it internal. That may have been what they would have done instead. But Sony could have offered Bluepoint. What if they wanted a remake of just anything? Sly Cooper game, Jack and Daxter. Naughty Dog needed some development help to get a Jack and Daxter game out. Bluepoint could have done it. I know Naughty Dog doesn't seem to care about Jack and Daxter anymore. I'm just making the point. It's all they can do just to churn out Interstellar at this point, apparently. So, I just feel like Sony's put them in themselves in this corner where they've invested so much in these live service games that aren't really panning out. Because it has to be real good if it's going to win out in the market. They had a good apparatus up for churning out single-player games if they could have just harped with their developers about efficiency, Let's just get a game out on time, save this for the next sequel if it's a good idea. You know what I mean. They needed to figure out how to get out their same games on a lower budget. That's what they needed to do. And I'm not saying cut the payroll to lower the budget. I'm saying maybe not focus so dang much on pushing the technology immediately and doing this, waste a whole bunch of man hours on getting the individual follicles of hair rendered or the blades of grass. Let's just get a higher quality. Let's just put out a quality game that maybe cuts the corners a little bit on presentation just so we can get the game out timely and have first-party games on the market. Because what's been the main criticism of this generation that I keep hearing about? Oh yeah, we thought the generation was just getting started because there's not a lot of first-party games, not a lot of games that really use the PS5 hardware. Same for Xbox. They're just now seem to be hitting stride with games that we knew about years ago coming out. And I don't know. I just can't get around this big mental block where I see that they have butchered off one of their better studios that does one thing really well. Probably could have done other things really well if you put them to that task. But because there was one live service game they might have been working on, might have needed more money and work to get right, might have needed something. They just axe it all. because they didn't want it to become a loss on the books. But they made sure it was a loss on the books in a way because they got rid of these people. They got rid of the potential of these people. They got rid of the potential of their first party portfolio. If the stock owners had any sense, they'd devalue their stock now. They probably won't because they think, okay, this will look better on the books. But again, that's the problem I feel like corporate America has now. And I think this is the problem Sony Interactive Entertainment has now, even if it's not fully American. Though this was all clearly happening on the western side. And with that, I'll conclude this episode of the Blue Knight Cast. I guess you can tell I was a little frustrated to hear all this today. But if you want, please like, subscribe, share. I'm trying to keep something steady going where I talk about these things. If you want to leave a comment, tell me what Bluepoint meant to you. I told you what it meant to me. I'm probably not, I feel like I'm mad about it, and I don't have a big reason personally to. But other than just I hate it when this stuff happens. But, leave a comment about what Bluepoint meant to you or what this whole news story means to you. And thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your time with me. Have a good day.